today's show, we will break down pretty much everything you need to know about what the hell the Cowboys are doing with the Dak Prescott situation, the contract, the short term, the long term, etc. That includes, but is not limited to, the current status, the actual contract details, as Adam Schefter spreads misinformation on social media. If the trading him now makes sense for Dallas, if they should draft a quarterback this year, what the Dak Prescott replacements could look like. This will be a longer video, but I think it does explain both sides, the pros and cons, fairly well. So help us out by sharing today's video. I think that will help inform others. And oh, by the way, whatever side you're on, I think you should be frustrated with how the Cowboys have operated so far. So the current status amid the old conflicting report side of it. Maybe a deal gets done, but the vibes are not very good at this moment. As we broke down on Tuesday, this was the news report. It was a breaking news caption from Ian Rappaport. The Cowboys and Dak have a mutual understanding of his contract situation. Sources say with no offers from Dallas despite him being in a contract year. No indication a deal is coming. Now, other Cowboys reporters have said, no, wait a minute. They have not closed the door altogether, but it's very clear they're not doing a deal right now. Maybe they revisit later. Here's what Josina Anderson reported. Now, I put this in a quote as opposed to the Twitter because it's just too long. Regarding the Cowboys and Dak Prescott, the team does intend to work out a contract for their 3-time Pro Bowl QB and has not closed off potential to consummate a deal for him this year. Although there's currently no offer or imminent talks, the team is not presently charting a path to let Prescott go to free agency, despite some chatter to the contrary. Prescott's entire contract history with the Cowboys, from his rookie deal, tagging extension restructures, are all macro indicators of his eventual goal. There are reports out there that the Cowboys actually do want to pay Dak Prescott, but not right now, later, maybe in August, maybe after the year ends. This would play into the Cowboys refuse to spend any more cash of note right now. But next year, when there's no cash spending being spent at the moment, well, then they'll do that big old signing bonus deal for a quarterback. Which, frankly, is really the overarching complaint I have right now with this organization. However you look at this, from a pro-Dak or an anti-Dak angle, the Cowboys have done a bad job and a borderline organizational failure job of this quarterback contract. When this dates back to the last time, so they've learned from their mistakes. If you are pro-Dak, if you believe that they can win a championship with him, the deal should have been done already. They shouldn't have been dragging their feet because waiting only costs you more in the end. And if you are anti-Dak, you don't think he's the guy, then why is he still here? They should have moved on already. They should have started the rebuild, gotten somebody else in there. Instead, they've done nothing. So my answer to the pinned comment here of have the Cowboys handled that contract properly is no. They have not done this right. And they're making the exact same mistakes they did last time. What do you think? It's the pinned comment on today's video. Y for yes, N for no. Now, I know that Adam Schefter went on the Pat McAfee show and said the Cowboys owe $90 million in dead money in 2025. No, they do not. Don't really know what Adam got from that one. I think he just looked at the contract for the original contract dead money, which was 90, but that was 3 years ago. So no. Here is how the Dak contract actually breaks up. His cap hit this year is $55 million, a self-imposed, laughably high cap hit, with an additional $40 million in dead money in 2025 if he's not even on the roster. So some have suggested the Cowboys should trade Dak Prescott instead of waiting. Now, obviously, there is a no-trade clause for Dak Prescott. I think there are ways you can get him to agree to waive that no-trade clause, but it's still at your detriment. If the plan in the end isn't to keep him, which you should know by now what your plan is, then yeah, you should trade him. But you know what? You kind of screwed yourself with your timing already. The ideal window was a week after you lost in the postseason. You should have known by then what your plan was going to be. If you're now waiting till March, you've cut out significant options. The Falcons are no longer going to be in the market. The Steelers are not going to be in the market. And other teams that might have been interested, well, now they've spent their money. They're kind of causing issues from that perspective. And oh, by the way, Dak has the leverage here still with his no trade clause. Is Dak going to want to say, yes, trade me to a team? Also, let's make them spend that first-round pick, that second-round pick on trading for me, and then not let me get another good player on my roster? The leverage, once again, is in Dak's hands. And a year away from free agency, he could just say, you know what? No, I don't want to do that. Or his agent might say it for him. In fact, I actually have a hot take here. If you're out on Dak, it doesn't matter what you get back for him. Because you're not going to maximize your return on your investment, especially at this stage. So if you really don't want him, trade him. Or even just cut him. And say, you know what, we screwed up. We're going to rebuild. We're going to start the rebuild properly. Because as we'll get into, we know how this ends. If the Cowboys say, let's give it one more year and ask the top 10 but not Hall of Fame quarterback to do more with less. It's not going to work. That's probably a hot take for many, but I'm not worried about 2024 at that point. I'm worried about 2025 and beyond. I'll explain why here in a little bit, but today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. You pick 2 to 6 player stat projections, more than or less than. On the stat projections, I always advise the flex play. That way you get 2 out of 3 right, 3 out of 4 right. You can get one of your picks wrong and still come out on top on Prize Picks. Obviously, they got MLB going on right now. You got some March Madness Prize Picks as well, and NFL season-long picks as well. Now, in general, the season-long Prize Picks take the more than, as long as guys are healthy. The projections kind of already factor in the injury risk. That's why it's all lower than what they did last year. So Patrick Mahomes, passing yards, Dak passing yards, Lamb touchdowns, Micah sacks. Give me the more than on all of those. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. The link's in the comments section and the description of today's show. Back to the hot take of mine. I think we know how the 2024 year is probably going to unfold, right? Dak's going to play at a top 10 level. The team will come up short, whether that's, they miss the playoffs by a half game, or they get to the postseason and, they don't pull it all together and they lose again in frustratingly heartbreaking, annoying, makes us all angry fashion. And then you know what happens. If there is no deal done by then, you have no power to keep him. And you're kind of banking on the idea that Dak goes, you know what, I just want to be a Cowboy still. After all the crap I've put up with as I've watched this organization not support me at times and allow different leaks to get in there, he says, you know what, I'm going to stay anyway. Or you lose him for a third-round comp pick. Your trade or cut savings, if you move on now, over 2 years, whether it's pre-June 1st or post-June 1st, is about $29 million. So if you're going to rebuild no matter what, the end result here is to get that third-round comp pick back and thus not spend in free agency in order to afford that third-round comp pick is about $29 million. Who here wants to pay $29 million on your salary cap for a third-round pick? I don't want to do that, actually. I'd rather take these salary cap savings, even though they're not going to spend it. I think that's a pretty bad way to start a rebuild, which, again, whole point I'm making, you should have made your decision already. You should have figured out if he's your guy and paid him already. And again, we can argue like, oh, well, maybe Dak wants a lot of money. He does want a lot of money, obviously. But there are multiple reports now saying they haven't had contract talks yet. So the team isn't trying to do that, right? That's a bad sign. It's the team's job to do that. This is the same team that said they weren't making calls to free agents. They were letting player agents call them. What are we doing out here, guys? Now, I'm not done. We'll look ahead to 2025 and beyond here in a moment. We will have more Cowboys YouTube videos for you here every single day, oftentimes multiple times per day. So do not miss out. Hit that sub button right now, youtube.com/@CowboysTV. Now, another idea I've seen floated out there is to simply draft a quarterback this year and use him as leverage to get a Dak Prescott deal done. Here's what Mike Tannenbaum said about the Cowboys drafting a QB. The only way you'll have meaningful leverage with Prescott, like they did with Tony Romo, is to go draft Spencer Rattler in the second or third round and develop the next guy. Until you have a meaningful replacement, Prescott has unlimited leverage because he's a winning NFL quarterback. So to be clear, the proposed plan here is to just piss away a second or third round pick to save a few $1 million. Really? That's the plan? Is to just waste it and not use it to save, what, maybe $5 million? It's a far cry from our previous ideas. Every word Tannenbaum said there was wrong. It's not even like the potential draft pick you'd be wasting. It's like, no, you're literally just going to take a guy that you hope you never, ever, ever have to play. The leverage does not come from the Cowboys not having a backup. The leverage comes from Dak being less than 12 months away from unrestricted free agency and NFL teams being desperate to find that caliber of quarterback play. Other teams would love a top 10 quarterback. Assuming Dak stays healthy, which I think is a bigger assumption than some people would like to admit, that's my biggest concern, frankly, we will have never seen a quarterback at his age, at his assumed health, at that level of play, hit the open market. We've seen better quarterbacks, Hall of Fame quarterbacks hit that market, coming off massive injury, coming off down years, coming off significant age concerns. Never seen that happen before. The market could get crazy, and you have no control to stop him. You can't tag him. The Romo comp, by the way, makes 0 sense. That's not what happened. The Romo could have left. It's that he decided to retire, and Jerry convinced him somehow because it's like his extra kid somehow. And there were medical issues, of course, with Tony Romo as well. Back to Dak Prescott. We'll talk placements in a minute. Do you want Dak as the Cowboys quarterback? 1 for yes, 0 for no. Sound off in the comments. Now, I think the most likely outcome, the reality is the Cowboys are going to have Dak Prescott as the quarterback this season. Like that's what they don't want to be bad, so they're going to try to avoid it. So who's the next quarterback there? Well, the internal guy would probably be Trey Lance. Now, of note, Lance hasn't played football very much in the NFL or college or even high school to an extent, and he hasn't been very good when he's played, but there is upside. He's about as old as some of the other draft picks we'll get to here in a moment, but he's also a free agent. Let's talk about not having leverage, because you are not going to pick up the fifth-year option. So Lance is the internal option. I'll mention some of the realistic draft picks. The big four guys, or the big three plus McCarthy, they're not going to be there. It's not realistic. Don't even bother. Bo Nix and Michael Penix might get there. I don't love those guys as franchise options. There's things that intrigue me, sure. They're about the same age as Trey Lance is. Nix played in a fake offense at Oregon. Penix's, under pressure stuff and injury concerns terrify me. Spencer Rattler is a trap. Don't fall for it. Jordan Travis, Michael Pratt scream backup. Joe Milton has the strongest arm in football. Lord knows where it's going to go. He's Tyree Jackson 2.0. And hey, by the way, in this scenario, you will have a new head coach, right? So what does your new head coach want? You're going to spend a top 75 pick, top 80 pick on a quarterback, and then the new guy says, I actually don't want him at all? Again, the lack of a plan continues to rear its ugly head in this conversation. So who do you want? Go a lot of different routes here. As the Cowboys quarterback in 2025. Sound off for me in the comments section. Some potential free agent replacements. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are Steelers quarterbacks. The, of course, concern here is if one of those guys play well, they're probably not going to be free agents. Tua and Goff, I think, get new deals, by the way, from their teams. If not, Dak might be that team's quarterback. And for the memes, I'm putting Andy Dalton on here because it's funny. Trade replacements. I'm sure someone will ask about Kyler Murray at some point because that actually terrifies me, by the way. Also, he's owed $32 million. You want to spend $70 million on a quarterback next year? That's what you're asking to do with the dead money still. Geno is actually not a bad bridge quarterback option. By the way, those teams could also go after Dak potentially. If Bryce Young's bad, you could try to do the bust draft pick, try it out in Dallas again. Or you draft somebody. Some 2025 was probably the most likely outcome, right? Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers. We'll come back to Shedeur Sanders. I know how this is going to go. Noah Fafita actually played pretty well for Arizona. Is Cam Ward going to be good enough now transferring to Miami? Riley Leonard. I honestly don't know if any of these guys are going to be top 5 picks next year. There are very real concerns where you're banking on massive breakout, fixing this big issue in 2024. Like Shedeur Sanders, right? It's Deion's kid. I am terrified of the circus angle that could come along with this here, whatever. There are things I like about him. I do not buy this Mel Kiper ESPN guaranteed top 5 pick. It's not how he is. I like him, though. I do. There's a lot of things to like. Here's the issue with this, right? Let's assume we go with the, Dak's back for one more year. They win 9-10 games. They're picking in the early 20s again. If one of those guys is so good, it's like, yeah, this is the next franchise quarterback. How are you going to get him? How do you plan on getting in the top 5, top 10 to draft that quarterback? If you think they're so good, they're going to be gone, right? So then how are you getting up there? You're getting a bunch of draft assets to go do it? And oh, by the way, we always love quarterbacks in the draft. It is an inexact science. Look at the numbers here. I ran these myself. Since 2013 through then, up until that Andrew Luck era, right after that, here are the just starting quarterback caliber hit rates. I'm defining this as like not even as good as Dak. Like I'm counting 2 over the top. I didn't count Baker because he's bounced around too much there, so call it a half point each. I'm counting Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo-esque quarterbacks in the day 2 range. You got just over of a 35, 36% chance of taking that top 5, top 15 quarterback and going, yeah, this is it. Your other day 2 picks are 37% chance. Day 3, you got a 13% chance. That's like Jalen Hurts is the best example. Day 3, it's Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott. By the way, in that time frame, there has been one Super Bowl winning quarterback. My point here is that it's hard. You have a top 10 quarterback. It hasn't been good enough. The downside is it ends up being really bad. If you want to take that risk, okay, that's fine. It's a plan. I get it. But their path for Dallas has been terrible. It has been a bad plan, whichever side of this Dak debate you're on. And for a team that once wanted to draft Pax Lynch and Connor Cook, that's concerning for me as they potentially move forward. Or they pay him in August or next year and pay him even more than it would have been previously. And at that point, why were you waiting in the first place?